When was the last time you had a deep conversation about dating, finding a job, reaching our goals, and all the other intricate areas that make up our 20s? Every episode, I talk about these topics with real young adults who are living and learning along with the rest of us. If you want to hear how your peers are dealing with and conquering these areas of life, tune in. This is Building the Blueprint. Xander, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's very much a great opportunity for me to be on the show with you today.
The opportunity is all mine. I'm excited to have you. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Hello, my name is Xander Von Esmarch. I am a college student down in San Diego. I go to a private university called Point Loma Nazarene University, and I'm studying commercial music, as in business of music, focusing in production. And I've known Nick since high school, from the very beginning.
Yes. You've known me from the early days.
From the days, yeah.
I would ask you questions about everything. Xander was like my mentor when I'm like a freshman. And even though we're the same age, I'm like, Xander, help me, please. So excited to have you. I want to start out talking about college, because we're both college students right now. We're both juniors. I'm curious for you, what was a preconceived notion that you had about college that turned out to be wrong? Because I can tell you personally, I had a lot that were not true.
Probably a lot. I would say the first big thing is my school doesn't have Greek life. And in all kinds of film and media, that's all you really see about college. Like, it's just craziness. And my school didn't have Greek life.
Yeah.
So it was very much different than my expectations, for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know how big the dorms would be. Mm-hmm. Like, my dorms are very small.
How big is your school?
My school's very small.
How many students at your school?
I would say each class probably only has 300, 400 people.
Wow.
So it's like very small.
Redwood High School.
It's high school.
So did that impact your decision at all, like in a positive or negative manner? Because personally, I went to Oregon because I didn't want to know everybody. I was like, I need to be able to do something stupid and not everyone knows about it. Like, I was
you can disappear.
I was wanting to disappear in the crowd a little bit, yeah. I'm curious, like, how did that impact your decision?
I think socially, I was not as big of a fan of that.
Yeah.
However, I really liked that the class sizes were small. Mm-hmm. I originally wasn't going into music. The class sizes are extra small for those because it's a smaller major.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know my professors. I wanted to be able to talk to them. What's cool is in my program, I know a lot of my professors very personally. I don't know, we text, that kind of thing. It's kind of crazy. I remember 2 months in, I didn't submit some homework.
Yeah.
And I got a text from my professor, and he was like, hey, I got your number off so-and-so. Just wanted to make sure you missed today, but we had a lot of work, and I didn't want you to not be able to do the assignment. And I was like...
That's so nice.
But they're so sweet. They're all good people. I wasn't like...
Oh, yeah, you're really not like, this is about to be a lawsuit.
I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And they're very great, heartfelt people.
Yeah.
I would say that I didn't expect, like, not being able to escape was definitely something that was weird to me. Mm-hmm. I expected people to be a lot more mature coming into college. Uh-huh. I felt like I had gone through a lot of life even before college, and I knew a lot of what I was. And I think just the demographic I was in, it's a predominantly Christian school. A lot of them had more of a sheltered upbringing.
Yeah.
The smallest things I may have done in my upbringing, like little funny stories, were like things they wouldn't do in a lifetime, you know?
Bro, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're like, you're off the rocker. And I was like, I am not really. Yeah. Especially among my peers, I felt like I wasn't doing all that much.
Interesting.
So the culture was very different. Not in a bad way, but I think there were certain things, like in relationships, it was like, wow, these people just haven't lived as much life as me. Like, I don't relate to them in that way.
Yeah, which can be a struggle at times, but also interesting. And
yeah, it's not always a bad thing.
It can be a lot of things.
Yeah, but it could definitely interact with your compatibility with people, right? Yeah. Where it's just like, this guy is just a high schooler, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
It's not something I thought I would be facing in college, for sure.
Yeah, I am in Greek life, and I can tell you, at least personally, all the stereotypes are true. Like, most of them are true. And so I think in Greek life, I wasn't surprised that there's like a lot of immaturity. But I think at Oregon, it's definitely different. Everyone has had experiences, even if don't like act mature, but it's like they know what they're doing. They've lived life. They haven't lived a sheltered life.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost different in a way, because if you're immature because you haven't lived a lot of life versus you have lived a lot of life and there's the expectation that you're supposed to be silly and rambunctious, it's a different vibe. It's not, oh, this person could lock in and sell something to me. Yeah. It's, oh, this person has never had a family death or something. It's like, what?
They're still getting there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Something where it's just, I can't even fathom. Last time I was like you was in middle school. That's crazy.
That is weird. I'm curious too. I think what a lot of those students deal with when they're new to college is there's so much more happening.
Yeah.
Like you have school and then you have extracurriculars and then social life's a big thing and then you have no one on your ass about do your homework by 9. And I think a lot of kids get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you, someone who is a little more mature and a little more developed, how do you deal with that? Because I know you're very involved.
I'm not super involved.
You don't have 8 hours of free time a day. You don't have class and then you go home and that's it. You do things beyond that.
For sure. Yeah, I would say my interests vary from time to time. Yeah. I know freshman year, I was in the gym every day of the week for 2 hours, which was insane and definitely not sustainable. Uh-huh. Now I rock climb, so I have different outlets for that type of thing. And I just love spending time with my people. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of close friends, especially 2 of my roommates are my closest friends. We'll go out and do stuff. We rock climb together, all that kind of stuff. I think initially it was harder for me to adjust to the workload, but I was pretty adaptable. They put me in a lot of tough classes initially, right when I joined music, because I had enough skills to get into like the highest classes, but none of the work. Mm-hmm. So I was getting thrown into the deep end on things that probably should have taken me like an hour, were taking me like 4 to 6. So that was pretty intense, but I'm so used to it now that I do just have a lot of free time and I'm just good at.
So you're really good at doing what you have to do fast and freeing yourself up in other ways. So it's you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's a laziness that has its advantages, for sure.
I've seen that a lot.
Everything's, to take it back to your book, it's the Q1 things, that urgent and important. Mm-hmm. I'm very good at getting that stuff done. Yeah. Whenever it's urgent and important, I get it done. And that's about it.
If it works for you.
Yeah. Of course, you end up biting off more than you chew sometimes, and then it doesn't work at all.
It's going to ebb and flow. Yeah, you're going to get overwhelmed at times, but...
Fortunately, I've been competent enough to get a lot of that stuff done.
Yeah.
Even in a background I'm not super familiar with, which was music. I wasn't planning to go into music. I didn't have a ton of background in that, but it's been great doing it. I've loved every second of it.
Tell me more about it. What are some of your favorite parts about music?
I think in terms of something I enjoyed doing for a long period of time, it's something that I just don't really burn out on as fast. I'm just so passionate about it, and the classes that I do all relate to it. So if I'm taking a conducting class, I'm still developing skills for eventually writing songs, right? Because I'm getting a good sense of time. I'm getting used to working with other musicians. So every like little wax on, wax off thing actually makes sense to me. Even the silly ones, like I said, conducting was one where I was like, this is weird, but I was actually learning things. So I found that no matter if I like the people in the class, if I like the teacher, I loved learning about it. And that's all I cared about. And I wanted to get better at it, and I wanted to make a business out of it. So I quickly found out that it's exactly what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. Do you have role models within the music industry, or like maybe a professor?
All my peers are so talented.
Yeah, you told me about
all of them come out of great music backgrounds. A lot of them come out of the church. That's where they learn music. And that's how they ended up at the same exact church's school.
That makes sense.
And they're just also talented. I feel like a very small fish in a very large pond with a lot of big fish.
Yeah.
But it's great. They're all very nice people, very supportive. I have 2 professors. One of them is the head of the music department, and he's the one who originally got me into the music program or interested in it. I went to go check it. I was going to do business accounting.
Yeah, you're going to do what I do.
And I was like, I don't really need to know much about that. On a preview day, I went in, and he was like, oh, well, do you sing? And I was like, I did in middle school. And he's like, great, sing right now. And he started playing the piano, and I was mortified. My parents were sitting there like, is he okay?
Yeah.
And I did it, and he's like, great, I'll write you down for my choir. I'm like, I'm not doing music. And then I talked with my major professor, who's a huge mentor to me. I meet with him once a week.
Really? Wow.
It's actually a built-in class because he's just such a resource. And he essentially, when I came in my next preview day, I went and saw him. I was the only person coming in. And he said, you love music. Why aren't you doing music? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can make it work. I can't compete with these people. And he said, all the skills you need will teach you. You have to just be willing to work hard. Are you willing to work hard for it? And I said, yeah, I'd work hard in anything I'm doing. And he's like, we can give you a good business out of this. It's not like you're going to be a starving musician. We'll teach you everything you need to know. You'll be at the level of your peers. You just got to be able to hang on. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. I was going to double major. I started going to my music classes because I switched my major, and I never went to a business class.
That's awesome.
Incredible. And he's been such a mentor all the way through. Well, now that I'm meeting with him like weekly, it's amazing. I'll write a song and he'll really dig into it with me, right?
Is he someone who is more of a resource because he's just there to listen and bounce ideas off of, or is he really someone there where you're like, hey, here's a question, I need an answer? I mean, both.
I mean, if I don't bring anything in, I'll just talk to him and be like, oh man, I'm going through this with my mom and my sister, and he'll be like, I totally hear it. He's a very spiritual man, I think, which is great because he's lived a lot of life and he knows a lot of great things to say about hard situations.
Yeah.
But I ask him all kinds of things. He's also a lawyer. He passed the bar actually, I think my freshman year.
Okay.
And he does copyright law. If I'm like, hey, how do I introduce a contract to my friend who's playing an instrument without it being weird?
Yeah.
And without worrying about copyright splits and stuff, without it being awkward.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can work on it, but here, show me a draft of a contract. I'll tell you if it's legit, all that kind of stuff. So it's all kinds of things. He'll talk about marketing strategy.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible resource. I think he used to be like in charge of a label.
Wow.
Like a music label. So there's no one better to do that kind of work.
Yeah. It sounds like you're surrounded by a lot of very impressive individuals, whether it's like a mentor or people who are also doing this as their career.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great environment to set you up for success, because it does suck at times that you're maybe not the best one there because everyone's so talented, but it definitely motivates you and elevates you way quicker than if you were the best one there.
Absolutely. I feel if the importance is learning, you should be somewhere where you can learn the most. And a good community that's good at what you want to do and good at something that you're pursuing. I think that's good for any business. But in music, it's great.
Yeah. I think one of the concerns a lot of people thinking about music have are they can't make money.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that between following your passion, but also nervous of, is this a sustainable career?
Yeah, it's tough. That was my first concern, actually, going into music was, I'm not getting paid. What's going to go into this? And obviously, while I'm in college, I'm less worried about that. I'm still supported by my parents, thankfully. Really, that's what a lot of my chats with my professor is about, my major professor. Those one-on-ones. Hey, how do I make money right now? And the industry changes. It's very entrepreneurial. A lot of it's freelance work. But I think the most important thing is if you have good networking skills and you know how to meet people, everybody's really more connected than you think. There's like the 6 degrees of separation. It's even less for that for music, right? So if you're doing good work and even sometimes working for free in projects that you think are just really cool, that's how you get projects after that. The rule in the industry is never say no to things, which is really tough because you'll never see the full picture until 15 years down the line. But everybody I've talked to in the industry is all about, yeah, I did this student project, and then somebody said, I thought that was really cool. Come work on my project. And then 5 steps from then, you're working for Sony, and you're like, I'm not really sure how I got here. But if you really trace it back, it's, oh yeah, because I said yes to this project, and I took it seriously.
You're saying yes and.
Yes and, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there's limits, but you want to do as much as you can. It's pretty grueling at times, because you could be working at 5 projects in a row, and then have like a year you're going where there's nothing going on. So I think the most important part is, there's money to be had, but you need to have a good business sense in terms of you're a company, you're your own employee, and work isn't constant, right? You're contracted a lot. You need to know how to manage and make that money stretch as long as it can. Because you will make money, but there's no guarantee. There'll always be work, but you have to be smart about investing your money and having it work for you and that kind of thing, right? Having good investments is a big part of music, even though it has nothing to do with music. Having a good financial manager, right? Cutting business expenses where you can for what you're working on, right? Like running your studio gear purchases through a company instead of just you, and working it out in that way, tax-wise. Super important.
Yeah, you have to be very entrepreneurial, it sounds.
Yeah, you have to know. It's never a work I thought I would be doing, but frankly, I find it thrilling.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be in like sales or project work, really. I thought I'd be on a 9-to-5 in a desk job.
Being an accountant.
But it's really, yeah, no pun intended, it's the accountability that it gives you that I think is really great and really builds a great like business acumen, is to be able to sell things, be able to sell yourself, and then being able to make that money last into the future. Especially music can be unpredictable, but there's always something to do. because people always need music for everything.
Yeah, 100%. I'm also curious, how do you deal with self-consciousness and like self-doubt when it comes to music? Because we were talking about this at lunch. Like it's like public speaking when you're doing music.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that I had to deal with a lot when I started doing all this. Was I'm putting myself on the internet, and like some days it's not my best angle and I don't look great, and some days I'm like, is that even good advice? And some days I'm like, what if everyone shares this and now it's really embarrassing? Like, how do you deal with all of that?
That's a complex question.
It's a very complex question.
Let me see. What I was talking about at lunch was, for whatever reason, I've never, and this is something about the believing it and thinking it, whether or not I am good at something or not has a positive influence or a negative influence. I've always thought I've been the most awful public speaker. But what I've found is the more I've moved into music and the more I've had to entertain a crowd and all that kind of stuff, is I've just been putting in the hours. I've been putting in the time in front of people, and I'm actually better at it than a lot of my peers, which they tell me all the time. They're like, dude, you were great. And I was like, oh, what did you like? And they're like, you had control over the crowd, right? They loved you. It didn't matter what you played, although you played great. You just had a great influence on them. And I'm like, that's funny because I was really nervous doing that. And over time, you just become that thing. It's maybe the delusionally confident is definitely how it started for me. Was like, okay, I'm getting up, or even giving presentations in school. I was sitting there and going, I'm not confident. What would this ideal version of me who could give a speech do? And honestly, the answer is usually give the speech, right? Something that's great that I found for content is just recording yourself a lot. You get used to it, you start to ignore the camera, right? It's great to be conscious, especially in the original phases of working with the camera. But honestly, that's not what people are there for necessarily. It's good to look at your post-game plays like you would if it was like football, right?
Yeah.
And be like, why was I crossing my legs the whole time? Or was my left eye twitching the whole time? That's a bit unsettling. But honestly, a lot of that stuff's lost, especially if you're just talking passionately about what you love or having candid conversation. It really just doesn't phase you at a certain point.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think there's a lot of tips that you can use to like get better at it. Like recording yourself is definitely one. Like we did that for public speaking, where you have to record yourself and you have to watch it back, and it's so hard. I hate it so much. Like you have to watching yourself back, and you're like, why am I swaying? Like, why is my hair like that? What is that? And like you get better at it. But it really comes down to the biggest hurdle is starting. Yeah. The biggest hurdle is always starting, and the biggest benefit is always just faking it till you make it.
For sure.
And like,
I agree with that.
You have to just like, it's the hardest part is just like the first step by far. And then once you're up there, like it gets easier.
It's the little achievable tasks.
Yeah. And every minute it gets a little easier. It's like first 5 minutes, and then like next 5 minutes, oh, this isn't that bad. And then like you're 30 minutes in, you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was on a podcast. Or I didn't realize I was public speaking. Or I didn't realize I was playing music, because you just get in the zone.
What I noticed, and after I'd bombed plenty of times performing, I realized that I was nervous up until I played my first note, and it could be the worst thing you ever heard, right? Often I would make a mistake on my first note, and I'd be like, damn. And then I was like, there's nothing else to lose. There's no lower point. I've already failed my expectations. Yeah. It's only going up at this point. And I realized that nobody really cares. That's the big thing with musicians that especially a lot of my peers are realizing at our age, is we're like, nobody except like us, like the few people in the room at a show are really going to be able to tell whether or not you're doing a good job. And I think that's good. It's good to be self-conscious of your work, but it's also good to know your audience, right? Are they going to notice if I like messed up that move a little bit? Probably not, right? Because I'm already doing so many other things that have become second nature. Yeah. That the small details are kind of lost. And if you get them, it's great. If not, it's like, whatever. I would say that confidence does come, and that might seem unreasonable if you're at the beginning of something, but it really does. And for me, that was something I thought was really bizarre and I didn't think could happen. But I would say the best thing you can do is just keep doing it, right? And be able to make mistakes, right? We're all humans. We wouldn't be interested in the things we're doing unless we were humans, right? Unless we were paying attention. I mean, it's novel to have all this AI stuff around, but ultimately it's hard to form a connection with something that's not real. The second you know it's not real, it's, oh, that's great and all, but I'm never going to see this person. Yeah. There's something about art that's very human. There's something about conversation that's very human. And beyond helpful tools, it's hard to see that pushing beyond that because we really like humans. We're hardwired to like humans. We're communities, right? That's what made humans in evolution so strong, right?
Yeah, that's what makes you live the longest. Like they do studies on that. It's like the biggest factor in how long you live is how social you are when you're 70 and 80.
That's crazy. It has to be baked into your code like that, but it is.
Yeah, there was a whole joke. It was like the most important muscle is your thigh because walking and meeting people is the most important thing to do. I was like, I'm still not hitting leg day. That was not enough
no
to convince
shot.
me. No way.
That's funny. I haven't heard that one.
Do you write New Year's resolutions?
Usually no.
Okay.
I did write my little list for this book that I just read, Crush Your 20s, by a guy named Nick Batchelder.
Sounds like a douchebag.
Yeah. Newer artist in the market.
Yeah.
Don't read him.
Don't worry about him.
But I made a little list. Obviously, I ate my grapes.
Yeah.
That's a new thing that I know, and I'm eating my grapes, although I'm not very intentional about it.
Yep.
But I did write a list.
I want to hear what your biggest goal is right now.
My biggest goal right now is to trust myself more. I recently came across a video. I wish I saved it because every once in a while I'll be hit by random inspiration from a YouTube short or a TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And it was somebody talking about the connection between overthinking and trust in yourself, and how a lot of the times our brains overthink, and that's a direct result out of us thinking we don't got this. We got to really plan about this. A lot of confident people just trust themselves, even if they know, there's a chance I mess this up. They give themselves the shot. It's you're due for one, right? You're due for a shot.
Due for one.
It's that kind of thinking that does really build up confidence. I really agree with that sentiment. I don't know. I think I overthink a lot, and I've gotten way better over time about thinking less. Does it really matter what the outcome is? Can I just have fun with this?
Yeah.
Anything. Can I just enjoy it? There's even been times I've thought about my overthinking is a strength. Sometimes my attention to detail is great.
Yeah.
But I think there's a line between being intentional and being nervous or being scared.
Thinking back on it, the scariest things that I've done that I actually were scared of and did, I always did them when I wasn't thinking. I remember I jumped off a really high rock when I was young. I was terrified, right? And I was standing there for a minute and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And there was I can vividly remember there was a split second where my brain just turned off and I just jumped.
Yeah.
And then I made it and I was fine.
And you're like, wait, that was easy.
I was like, let's do it again. Or ask a girl for a number. I'm like, I'm not doing that. What if she says no? I'm not doing that. And then my brain turns off hey, excuse me. And whatever other,
You get your foot in the door. You play that first note and you're like, wait.
Yeah.
This is silly.
Plan properly and then just stop thinking. You can only plan so much. And then it's then you just got to turn it off.
Yeah.
And you'll be all right.
And you're always all right. I feel like there's very few things you could do that would actually get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Don't mortally injure yourself.
Yeah, obviously don't do anything terrible like that. But if it's something that's ultimately good for you, develops you as a person, grows you in some way, a lot of times it's just worth trying, right? If it's not super deadly harmful or something like that. I'm not saying jump off a cliff. Let's say I went back and got a different degree. That's a nervous, big choice.
Getting a music degree is a nervous, big choice when you think
I'm
about
already
doing business.
past that one. I stepped through that door a long time ago.
But you did it. You made the first step, which is such a big obstacle for so many people, including us, right? It continues to be one, but you get better at it.
For sure.
100%. I think when you look back at goals in life, it's all obstacles. What's an obstacle that you've overcome that you're really proud of?
I'll have to think. I definitely don't reflect enough and have enough gratitude for these kinds of things.
I can tell one while you think, if that helps.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot. I think as silly as it is and as personal as it is, literally asking random people, talking to strangers, particularly girls, was something I was really proud of because I remember being in middle school or being in high school and be like, oh, that girl's so pretty. And I was so scared and would not talk to them and way too self-conscious about it and did not have the confidence to do it. It hurt so much that I couldn't do it. The what ifs really hurt. And I remember when I got to college, it switched in my brain where I was like, I can do this. It wasn't even, hey, can I get your number? It's just, oh, hi, what's your name? And I would talk to them and then we'd go our separate ways. But that felt so good because I spent 6 years, I could not get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of myself when I finally got comfortable being oh, I can go up to strangers and just be like, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Nick. And be like, that's a really cool sweatshirt. What's your name? And like that simple action means a lot to me because it was so hard for me.
That's a superpower, first of all. Hopefully one that we can all learn so we can enjoy in community. It's so funny. This was something I was thinking of while you were saying that we went from we're playing video games and you're asking me, how do I talk to girls? And I'm just telling you the truth. I'm like, you just have to talk to girls.
It is a true story. We would play Fortnite and I would say, Xander, how do I talk to girls? Help me.
And I was just like, have you tried talking to them?
I'm still planning.
I'm still planning. And I'm like, just do it. We'll go to the mall. We'll go talk. I don't think we ever did.
We never did. I would not have done that. I was way too scared. The plan was great. We had a great master plan. Never happened. Too scared to start.
I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
But it's so funny then going around and having you write a book and just telling the truth to me in a different way for different things in my life. It's a funny, like, surreal thing for me where I'm like, oh, that's so cool. We just exchanged that over how many years.
Yeah.
We talked about it and we figured it out. And of course, there's been many other things throughout life that I've learned from you. This was a big compendium of a lot of that. And as I'm thinking about things, I'm like, this is so funny. It's still like I'm having a conversation with Nick.
That's awesome.
And that's what I really love about that. But not to get too distracted, something that I'm really proud of, I don't think I've actually talked to you about this, which is funny. And if it's too contentious of a topic, we don't have to bring it up.
No.
Obviously, we can edit it out. But I would say I actually, in this past year, had a religious conversion of sorts into Christianity. And it's something that I never thought possible, partly because I never believed in anything like that. I wasn't against it, but I also had nothing to feel about it. And it was something that was very personal to me. I never wanted to find religion as a group or a group thing. To me, that was cheesy and not me. Mm-hmm. But there was a solid moment, and it was a funny moment. Somebody wanted me to go do some ministry with them, and I was like, no, that's not my thing. And eventually I ended up going to this meeting because I was like, what harm could it do? And I remember thinking it was funny and ironic to ask God whether or not I should do this thing for God. My imagination would be if God would say something, he'd be like, yeah, go do ministry. It was like some kids tour. And I was like, I hate kids.
Yeah.
And I remember I just heard a no in my head. I don't really have an internal monologue, so it freaked me out. And I was like, holy I heard that. And I was like, so I guess I don't do anything. And immediately in that moment, I thought of growing up, I had a mentor who I did homeless ministry with, and I helped out the homeless for. And that was something that felt deep for no reason. And I was like, wow, okay, I should do homeless work. I don't know why, but I just felt it. And then slowly confronting those things, which was a lot for me because I was frankly frightened, I worked those things out for myself. And it's still like a long journey for me, but it's something I never could have seen for myself. And it's had such a positive influence on my life. And it's so impactful. And doing homeless ministry has become one of the most important things for me. It's nowhere I could have ever seen myself. And I think just working with God to figure that out was probably the thing I'm most proud of myself for doing. After so many years of not really caring, thinking there was nothing there, it was just something that was super impactful for me. And I was deeply moved, and it changed my life in a lot of great ways. I'm still me in every way, but I don't know, I have that. And I'm so glad I kept going with it because frankly, it was terrifying.
And you had the strength. So it's a new thing. It's a scary thing. It's a thing you can get judged on very easily.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's very impressive and very cool. That's a part of your life now and that you're enjoying it.
It felt so counter to my being.
Yeah.
That made it so confusing because it wasn't me. I was like, I'm not this way. Mm-hmm. But I found it is me. And it always has been in a weird way, just not in a way I understood. So I think confronting those things was like super important for me. And that's one of those things where I feel constantly challenged in that way to do better for myself. The opportunities I'm faced with are always like something for me to deal with that I can get better from and that I can learn something from. And that part of that journey has been amazing.
Awesome. Love that. I want to shift back to social life to wrap things up. And one of the things one of the reasons I was always asking you about girls and women was you always had so many that were friends. You had a lot of friends that were women. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, whether you're like a high school kid who just hangs out with your 3 high school boy buddies, or you're a freshman in college who's like wanting to make friends that are women. What is your advice to a young man who wants to make meaningful friendships with women but's never done it before?
I would say once you find that level of friendship with, I don't know, let's say you're only friends with men, where you're just platonic and happy being in that situation, that is the same exact relationship you can almost exactly copy and paste with a woman, because we're all just people at the end of the day. And it can be tough because there's a lot of different social things that may make you feel those barriers and stuff. And there are real barriers between the sexes, I would say. But I would say it is worthwhile and important for you to get to know everybody that you can. And if you consider that half the population is all women, surely one of them has to be worth your time, right? I would say the hardest hurdle in becoming friends with a woman for a lot of my friends that I've seen has been they don't really know how to be platonic with a woman. And I feel like that's just something you have to learn through growing. You have to learn to just be friendly with somebody, not as a year-long prospect or something. Yeah. Not as a long game, not I'm a best friend because they're not interested in me. You have to find that person that's you just want to be friends with and that's totally okay with. That, or maybe they're out of your league and you can just decide, even if they're at their worst, right? And there's a situation where maybe you promise to yourself you can't and you won't. And I think once you set solid barriers and boundaries around those kinds of relationships, it's a lot easier. I told myself that with a lot of girls that I thought were maybe interested in me, or I was interested in them and it wasn't happening when we met. And I was like, okay, that's done. That's okay. There's other people, right? This doesn't have to be somebody I'm interested in. And I found that super fulfilling, right? I've found that in my life, it just happened naturally. I know in a lot of people's life, it doesn't, right?
Definitely not naturally for me.
But I think being an open person and being open to other experiences, because our experiences differ, especially across lines like that you have an open mind and you're just interested in getting to know and being closer with this person. The easiest way you can get closer to anybody, I would say, is just spend time with them. Find a way to spend time with them. Obviously, if they don't want to spend time with you, don't, right? But just do similar things. That's how you meet people, right? You have similar hobbies. It's the networking thing. You're not going to meet somebody really off the cold call, right? You're really going to meet them because you have a buddy who knows somebody and they have a good reputation, right?
Yeah. And there's 2 benefits to doing that too. Like the first benefit is if you go into those relationships and people with the intention of like, I just want to get to know you. Like there's no expectation. You're way less nervous because you're not nervous about what they're going to think about you. Or you're going in, what do I think about this person, like as a friend? And then also on the flip side, you should at least partially have the mentality when you're approaching women that you do like too, because it's easier. And there's something attractive about that too. You're not like, hey, do you like me? It's no, hey, what's your name? Let's talk. Like, I think that's something
you can't start with that ever. I mean,
I think so many young men think that of like, the first thought is like, I need to impress. Yeah. Or I need to show off, or I need to see what they think about me. When the first thought should be, let me learn about them, right? Or let me see what this could be.
It's to trust yourself that you can do it and that you have the capability to do it. And there's really not a lot wrong with just talking to somebody, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you do it enough, it's worth.
Yeah.
You know?
I 100% agree.
Yeah. I'm sure you have a different perspective than me because we've met a lot of different people, but I'm also curious about what you think about that topic.
About how to befriend.
Yeah. If you're a young guy, you don't really know what you're doing. Obviously, this is funny because years ago I was telling you this. Yeah. But you've lived a lot of life since then, right?
I have.
And I know you have different experiences and different tips you might have.
Yes. I think the genuine easiest way to do it is to befriend guys who have a lot of friends that are girls. Honestly. Because it's just such an unnatural hurdle when you're not used to it. Yeah. And it's much easier when, my buddy Xander has 4 friends that are girls that he hangs out with all the time. And I'm going to hang with Xander, and then therefore I'm around them a lot. And then that gets you more comfortable just being around those people in a friendly manner.
For sure.
And then you befriend those 4, and then those 4 introduce you to their friends. So I generally think the easiest way and the most practical way to do it is to make friends with guys, which you already do, that are already doing that.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't realize I was an instrument to that.
You were an instrument to that, yeah.
But I'm glad.
I've been playing you this whole time.
No.
Speaking of that, how does one develop more charisma, in your opinion? What is charisma? How does a young man develop it? What's like one thing they can do to be like, oh, I can do this and I'll have a little more charisma?
I always thought you were definitely a lot more charismatic than me, so I don't know why I'm teaching this. But I will say that, first of all, the easiest way to be charismatic is just to already be attractive. And I've said that probably 1 million times to 1 million people. If you're already a good-looking person, it doesn't really matter as much what you say.
That's an interesting perspective.
And that may be controversial because there are things you can do that make you more attractive personality-wise. But that is part of the equation.
I do agree that's the first step. When you feel good, it's easier to be more charismatic.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong that if you're a 10 out of 10, you can say stupid shit.
That's what I'm saying.
And you're going to get away with it.
And that's always been my BS advice about talking to girls too. How do you get in these relationships? And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But I think beyond that, right? You also read Robert Greene's book.
Yes.
You don't have to be a 10 out of 10. There's
In fact, he argues the opposite.
Exactly. There's a lot of 5 out of 10s that I know of or I've seen or that are dating 10s, right?
Sure,
dating 9s or dating 8s.
People you wouldn't think as conventionally attractive, maybe dating somebody who is.
Yeah, or
which may even be maddening to some because they don't understand how things work.
Yeah, or may not even dating, but just get a lot of attention and seem to have this kind of charm about them.
Yeah.
How does one work on that charm? If you're like, you know what? I feel okay about myself. I'm not a 10, but a 6, I'm a 7. But I still I don't really get that much attention from girls, and I'm not confident about it. And I see my buddy who's like a 7 or an 8, and he's crushing it. How can I get closer to him?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts, obviously,
after you do this, you get a lot of attention.
After reading this book, I would say that.
I love that you keep plugging my book.
Yeah. Also yours and Art of Seduction.
I was going to say, I was like, appreciate
I don't know if
it.
this answer is going to fit necessarily.
No, yeah.
Although you did talk about it a bit. Robert Greene would say there's different types of seducers. I would say that the most important thing in understanding that there's whatever archetypes or whatever is that everybody's interesting for some reason. And a lot of it is about knowing why you're interesting and playing to that. I think that's what a lot of, at least intentional charisma is. It's, oh, I'm pleasant to be around. I'm interesting and engaging. And for everybody, that's something different. I don't know. One of my lures as a musician is being a musician, right? Because that's a weird thing to do. There's not a ton of people who do that. It's really what makes you stand out. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people who are I don't really give a shit. But
yeah.
I think it's finding out what makes you in an interesting way and playing to your strengths, right? I think the hardest thing is probably figuring out what that is, right? But I tell you, you could probably ask your grandma and she would tell you, right? Mm-hmm. She may dummy it up a little bit and say, oh, you're just the most handsomest guy I've ever met. But then she'll be like, you're really funny. And then I'll be like, no, I'm not. And she'll be like, remember what you said yesterday?
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. If you find people you're good around, there's a good chance that you're doing something with that person. You've somehow seduced that person. I feel like it's a very, very
it's a scary
abrasive word.
We don't mean that in an aggressive manner.
You've charmed that person somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't know. A lot of people, you can just straight up ask them. You'd be like, oh, we have a great time. Or you could just think about it, honestly, most of the time.
You can ask I agree. You should ask your friends.
You should ask your friends. They'll probably be like, you're the funniest guy I've ever met. Or be like, I love that you love this and that you know so much about it, right?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it starts with the awareness of how am I dressed, awareness of how do I feel, awareness of am I trying to impress this? What am I saying? Awareness of you're aware of how you're being perceived.
Yeah.
And I think as you get good at that turns into what you're talking about with is authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think what I've noticed, particularly from you and one of my other friends whom don't try to be charismatic, but naturally really are and get a lot of attention, but don't seem to really try to get attention, is you two are super authentic. You are who you are, And
For sure.
you give off an energy that's very clear of like, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. And that comfortability with yourself is very attractive.
For sure. Yeah, I think, like I said, that was the best thing you can be. Also, I'm flattered.
Of course. I mean it. That's an example of asking your friend, what do you think? What do I do well? I think you do that really well.
Well, now I'm blushing. But yeah, I think that's exactly to what I was saying as well, was be yourself. There's something about you that's always great. In Robert Greene's book, he talks about how everybody as a child, as a baby, has to impress their parents. And so that they have all kinds of different strategies to impress their parents, whether that's being loud is like annoying them, or doing like little paddles with their hands, or saying da or whatever. Those are all part of the charm, and we all have it. It's not like somebody is devoid of charm. There's nobody on the planet Earth, they wouldn't have made it. That's simply just not evolutionary.
Yeah, that's a great point. Play to your charm.
So you do have charm. You just got to figure out what that is. As people, I don't know. Yeah, it's good to ask around. If you think somebody's really charismatic, like maybe at some point you thought I was like that, right? Be like, what do I like about them? Oh, they don't care what I think, but they want to be around me, right? That's great. They're interested in me. And what I say to them doesn't really make a huge difference unless they really think it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Unless I emphasize it. Like they're not going to be butthurt over something small or whatever.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. This is like a little broader, but like, in general, like my strategy has just been, what do I want? Who does it really well? I'm going to hug onto them. Like you're at music school. Oh, these people are great musicians. I'm going to hang out with them. My advisor has all this advice. I'm going to hang out with them. Yeah. Xander has friends that are girls. I'm going to hang out with Xander, etc. And then you really develop those skills being around those people. For
sure. I mean, if you're not good at something, outsource it.
Somebody is.
Somebody is. And honestly, spending a lot of time around the same type of people, right? If you want to be a good student, go to the library, meet a bunch of students, study with them. You'll probably end up studying a lot more that way, right? You are what you eat.
Yeah, get a swim buddy.
You are who you are around. Yeah, get your swim buddy.
Yeah.
Like in your book, we were just talking about this, like I've never found a good swim buddy. I found all kinds of people that are great at all kinds of things, but not somebody like...
For working out.
For like the gym. Yeah, the gym is great. It's a good way to put that. They're either more interested in the gym than me or they're way less interested, and I just can't hold the line, usually way less interested.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what, you won't go 6 out of 7 days of the week? And they're like, I don't have time to go for 2 hours, 6 out of 7 days of the week, which is reasonable.
Yeah, like your goal isn't 6 out of 7, your goal is maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's find someone who's doing the 4 or the 5.
But that's one of the things I liked. One of the big things I took away from your book was that swim buddy doesn't actually have to be swimming with you. And I thought about that and I was like, that's great. And I do that in relationships. If I text a friend, if I'm stressed out, instead of maybe I'm in a new place, I don't know anybody, I have old friends I can go reach out to. They don't know what I'm going through, right? Yeah. I'll go talk to them and I feel a lot better about myself. I'm like, wait, I do have my friends here, right?
Yeah.
They're still with me.
Yeah.
I still do that all the time, calling people. And I remember that my swim buddies are always there, right? They're people that you can rely on that just want you to be well.
100%. Yeah. I think by far people are our biggest asset for so many people. And
like you said, yeah.
And I think people are just underutilized in all those situations. Like I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I liked it from that perspective. I was like, oh, I could just have like my buddy. I could just be accountable to him about going to the gym. Yeah. And he could be like, great, or do 10 more push-ups or something, right?
Yeah.
Or no ice cream cone for you.
Yeah. You know? And you can have it too where it's like your goal is the gym and your buddy's goal is cooking. And they can be different.
Can exchange, yeah.
It's, hey, did you do your cooking goal today? Yeah, I did. Did you do your gym goal today? No, but I'm going to go now. I'm going to go later.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll check on you.
And that's a beautiful thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And definitely one of the more worthwhile things you can do in your life, right, is sharing that with somebody. Sharing the struggle and the progress and growth. I feel like that's a really important thing.
Yeah. Xander, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
We have a closing tradition on this podcast that comes directly from my favorite podcast, Diary of a...
I can't do more hot wings, Nick.
No more hot wings. I promise no more hot wings. No more da bomb. We have a closing tradition that comes from my favorite podcast, Diary of a CEO, in which the last guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing whom they're leaving a question for. And the question that has been left for you is tell us about your favorite memory from 2024.
Favorite
memory.
Oh, that's
I won't hold
really
you to
tough.
the favorite. Okay. One of your favorites.
A good memory from 2024.
Tell us about a great memory you had from 2024 looking back on it.
There's a lot of good memories in so many different categories. I would say going down to San Diego for the 4th of July was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I got to see so many people that I loved and missed after a month or two of college had gone out and I was home for the summer. And I was welcomed to all my friends' homes. A lot of them I hadn't been in before. And it was just something that was so nice and hospitable. And it was a break from so much grueling work. And I remember being there and just being like, I just have 2 weeks. I can have fun. I had friends coming into San Diego to come visit at the time too. So I was always occupied. I was just, I don't know. I was sleeping on my sister's couch. Like, it wasn't the most comfortable situation, but it was amazing. Nonetheless, it's those defying things that really make you remember. Yeah. You're like, wow, I really didn't care about that all that much. I just thought about that at the end. I was like, wow.
You're like, oh,
it was such a minor detail, right? Yeah. That like my back was sore the whole time or whatever. But I don't know. That was really one of the things I remember as like a really great rose-colored memory for sure.
Xander, thank you.
Thank you.